What do you do when the breakup never happened, but the closeness still disappeared? When the person you love is still beside you, but somehow feels far away. The relationship didn't end, the connection did.
Every story's got a spark, and every spark's got a name. This is the journey of finding mine. Who am I when the lights go low? Who am I when the world says no? Searching through my past, trying to free my soul. One truth at a time, letting every story unfold.
Let's be honest. Some of the most painful relationships are not the ones that ended, they're the ones that stayed. Stayed in the same house, stayed in the same routine, stayed in the same bed, stayed in the same relationship status. But somewhere along the way, listen to me, the emotional connection left the room. And that's what makes this hard because there is no dramatic ending to point to. No one packed their bags, no one slammed the door, no one posted, it's over. But deep down, both people can feel it. The laughter is thinner, the conversations are shorter, the intimacy is weaker, the warmth is fading. The relationship is still there, but the life inside it feels different. And maybe that's where you are right now. Still together, but not close. Still committed, but emotionally tired. Still showing up, but no longer feeling seen. So today, we're talking about it. Not the loud breakup, not the cheating scandal, not the public collapse. We're talking about the silent drift, the kind that turns lovers into roommates, partners into coworkers, and home into a place where two people live together but no longer truly connected. This episode is Love Disconnected. But before we go any further, I want to check in with you. How are you doing today? And of course, not the quick answer, not the polished answer that you took time to work on to explain to people. Not the I'm good answer that you give to people just because it's easier than explaining what you're really going through. But how are you doing in your heart? Because somebody listening today is carrying the kind of relationship pain that doesn't always get seen. It's hard to explain being lonely next to somebody. It's hard to explain missing a person who is still physically present. It's hard to explain grieving a connection that hasn't officially died, but doesn't feel alive either. And when that's your reality, you can start questioning yourself. Like, am I overthinking this? Am I expecting too much? Maybe this is just what relationship becomes. Maybe this is normal. Maybe I should just be grateful we're still together. But let me say this clearly. Staying together and staying connected are not the same thing. And if something in your spirit has been telling you that the relationship feels distant, empty, or emotionally dry, you don't have to shame yourself for noticing it. You're not weak because you want closeness. You're not needy because you miss intimacy. You're not dramatic because you want more than shared responsibility and routine survival. You're human. And healthy love is supposed to have connection in it. It's supposed to have presence. It's supposed to have emotional honesty. It's supposed to have moments where you still feel chosen, seen, heard, and valued. So if that's been missing, I want you to breathe for a moment and let yourself be honest. No pretending, no minimizing, no spiritual bypassing, no hiding behind "we're just busy." Let this be one of those moments where you tell yourself the truth. Maybe everything isn't falling apart, but maybe everything isn't okay either. And sometimes healing starts right there with truth. So take a breath, drop your shoulders, open your heart, and let's walk through this together. You know what makes love disconnection so dangerous? It usually doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, it happens quietly, it happens subtly. A missed conversation here, an unresolved hurt there, a stressful season that never got processed, a few disappointments that got buried, a few needs that went unspoken, a few moments where both people got tired and stopped reaching. And one day you wake up and realize we didn't break up, but something definitely changed. And that's what we're unpacking today. So let's talk about the relationship that hurt the most, or sometimes the ones that stay. We usually only think heartbreak only counts when someone leaves, but that's not true. Sometimes heartbreak is waking up next to the same person and realizing you haven't felt emotionally close in a long time. Sometimes heartbreak is sitting in the same room and feeling miles apart. Sometimes heartbreak is only talking about bills, schedules, kids, errands, and obligations. Sometimes heartbreak is realizing you know how to manage life together, but not how to reach each other anymore. That kind of pain is real because it's confusing. When a relationship ends, at least the ending is visible. But when the relationship stays and the connection fades, it creates a different kind of grief. You're mourning something that hasn't fully disappeared, but doesn't feel whole anymore. And that grief can be heavy because it's hard to explain. How do you explain to people that nothing big happened, but everything feels different? How do you explain that the person is still here, but the closeness isn't? How do you explain that the relationship is still functioning, but your heart feels underfed? That's what love disconnection does. It creates emotional emptiness in a place that's supposed to feel intimate. Let's talk about how functioning is not the same as flourishing. See, one of the biggest traps couples falls into is confusing functionality with health. You can still function while disconnected. You can still split responsibilities. You can still show up at events. You can still take family pictures. You can still handle business. You can still say love you on the way out the door. You can still do all the visible things that make a relationship look fine. But functioning is not flourishing. A relationship can be productive and still be emotionally dry. A relationship can be stable and still be lonely. A relationship can look intact to everybody else and still feel fractured to the people inside it. And that's why some couples stay disconnected for years because they're not in obvious crisis. They're just empty, they're just routine, they're just predictable, They're just emotionally flat. They know how to survive together, but they've forgotten how to truly connect. And that's the danger because survival can keep a relationship going, but it cannot keep it alive. So let's talk about when love turns into routine. See, routine is not bad. Let's start there. Routine helps life work. Routine keeps structure in place. Routine can even create security. But when routine becomes the entire relationship, something important starts fading because now the conversations are all logistical. What time are we leaving? Did you pay that bill? Who's picking them up? What are we eating today? Did you call them back? Don't forget this. We need to do that. And after a while, the relationship starts sounding more like project management than partnership. You're coordinating, but you're not connecting. You're talking, but you're not opening up. You're operating, but you're not being emotionally present. And that's when one or both people can start feeling invincible. Not because the other person hates them, not because love is completely gone, not because the relationship has become so consumed with doing life that it has stopped nurturing love inside that life. And if you stayed there too long, the emotional climate changes. You stop feeling pursued, you stop feeling cherished, you stop feeling deeply known, you stop feeling wanted, and that hurts because nobody wants to feel like they're only valuable for what they do. People want to feel loved for who they are. Here is another reason people disconnect when the communication stop feeling safe. Notice, I didn't say communication stop existing. A lot of people, or should I say a lot of couples, still talk, but they don't talk safely. And that's the difference. When bringing up hurt leads to defensiveness, when asking for more closeness leads to sarcasm, when honesty gets met with shutdown, when vulnerability feels like it will be used against you later, people stop sharing. They begin editing themselves, holding things in, choosing silence, telling themselves it's not even worth bringing it up. And that is where connection begins to starve because emotional intimacy cannot grow in an environment where people feel punished for telling the truth. Some people are not quiet because they have nothing to say. They are quiet because too many past attempts to communicate left them feeling unheard, misunderstood, or emotionally dismissed. So now they withdraw. And once both people start withdrawing, the relationship becomes less about intimacy and more about coexistence. You share a life, but not your inner world. You share space, but not your struggles. You share a home, but not your heart. That is disconnections. See, a lot of couples describe this season with one phrase: we feel like roommates. So let's talk about the roommate phase nobody wants to admit. Everybody knows what that means. It means the romance is weak, the spark is low, the intentionality is gone, the emotional warmth has cooled off. You live together, handle responsibilities together, keep the machine running together. but the softness is missing. No deep conversations, no thoughtful pursuit, no meaningful check ins, no laughter that lingers, no real pause to say, how are you doing in your heart? Now, hear me carefully. Becoming roommates does not always mean the love is dead. Sometimes it means life got heavy. Sometimes it means stress won. Sometimes it means the relationship stopped being tended to. Sometimes it means pain got buried instead of healed. And that matters because blame alone won't solve this. What's needed is awareness. Because if love is left on autopilot, life will reduce it to function every single time. Let me say that again. Because if love is left on autopilot, life will reduce it to function every single time. Schedules will do that. Pressure will do that. Children will do that. Stress will do that. Unhealed wounds will do that, which is why connection has to be protected on purpose. So let's go a little deeper. Let's talk about how intimacy is more than just physical. See, when people hear intimacy, they often think only about the physical closeness. But intimacy is bigger than that. Intimacy is emotional openness. Intimacy is safety, it's tenderness, it's playfulness, it's curiosity, it's comfort, it's feeling like your partner still cares about your inner world. And when intimacy fades, even physical closeness can start feeling empty because being touched is not the same as being known, being near someone is not the same as feeling connected to them. Sleeping in the same bed is not the same as emotional closeness. That's why some people feel lonelier in a relationship than they do by themselves. Because loneliness is not just about being alone, it's about being unseen. And when intimacy starts fading, couples often miss the deeper message. Usually, intimacy issues are pointing to something underneath. Maybe there's hurt that never healed. Maybe there's resentment. Maybe there's exhaustion. Maybe there's disappointment. Maybe there's insecurity. Maybe one person no longer feels emotionally wanted. Maybe both people are waiting on each other to make the first move. But whatever it is, it has to be addressed honestly because pretending never repairs intimacy. Now, let's go a little further. Let's talk about the silent grief of missing someone who is still there. See, this part right here is for the person who knows exactly what that feels like. Missing someone who is still physically present. That grief is hard because there's no funeral for it, no public announcement for it, no clear category for it, but it hurts. It hurts to feel like the closeness changed and nobody fully addressed it. It hurts to lie next to somebody and still feel emotionally alone. It hurts to remember how things used to feel and wonder what happened to the version of us. And sometimes the hardest part is that people around you may not even see it. They just see the relationship still standing. They see the pictures, They see the shared life. They see the outside, but they don't see the silence. They don't see the distance. They don't see the emotional hunger. So let me say this to that person: your pain is real. You are not imagining it. You're not being too sensitive. You are not wrong for longing for more than survival. Connection matters. So let's talk about the hope of being disconnected. So someone may ask, can the connection come back? Can the connection return? Yes, it can return, but not by accident. It takes honesty, it takes humility, it takes intentional effort. It takes two people being willing to face the truth instead of avoiding it. Reconnection does not usually begin with fireworks. It begins with truth. It begins with somebody being brave enough to say, I miss you. I feel distance between us. I don't want this to become our normal routine. I know life has been heavy, but I don't want us to disappear inside of it. I still care about this relationship enough to fight for the connection. See, that kind of honesty matters, my friend, because silence protects drift. Truth interrupts it. Now, will one honest conversation fix everything? Absolutely not. But it can open the door. And sometimes that's the beginning of healing. See, real connection is built through small, repeated choices. Listening better, checking in more deeply, making intentional time, owning where you've withdrawn, repairing what has been hurt, relearning how to be emotionally present, choosing not to let routine bury tenderness. That is how connection is rebuilt, not magically, but deliberately. Reconnection requires this. See, if two people truly wants to reconnect, they're going to need a few things. They're going to need honesty because you can't heal what nobody is willing to name. They're going to need humility because drift usually doesn't happen in a vacuum. They're going to need time because closeness rarely returns in rushed, distracted moments. They're going to need emotional safety because if people feel punished for opening up, they'll stay guarded. And they're going to need consistency, not just one emotional talk, not just one good weekend, not just one apology, but consistency. Because connections is not sustained by occasional promises. It's sustained by repeated care, repeated listening, repeated softness, repeated effort, repeated truth, repeated choosing. That's what keeps love alive. So I want to pause here and ask you a few questions. And I don't want you to rush past these. Sit with them. When was the last time we really talked about us? Not logistics, not pressure, not tasks, but us. When was the last time I felt emotionally close to my partner? Do I feel safe being honest in this relationship? Have we become efficient but distant? Am I missing them while they're still right beside me? Have we been nurturing the connection or just maintaining the arrangement? What pain has gone unspoken between us? What version of us am I grieving? And maybe the hardest question of all. Are we disconnected because life got heavy or because we stopped reaching for each other inside the heaviness? See, those are real questions, and real healing starts with real answers. So here's what I want to leave you with today. Not every broken thing looks broken from the outside. Some things break in silence. Some things break in routine. Some things break in postponed conversations. Some things break in emotional neglect. Some things break while the pictures still looks fine. And if you've been feeling that kind of distance in your relationship, don't ignore it. Don't minimize it. Don't bury it. Don't convince yourself that connection no longer matters, because connections does matter. Because love is more than just staying together. Love is presence. Love is truth. Love is pursuit. Love is repair. Love is tenderness. Love is emotional honesty. And yes, sometimes the relationship doesn't end, but if the connection is fading, the answer is not pretending. The answer is courage. Courage to tell the truth, the courage to name what hurts, the courage to say, I miss us, the courage to stop calling distance normal, the courage to fight what still matters. Maybe the healing doesn't start with the perfect solution. Maybe it starts with one sentence. We didn't break up, but I don't want us to keep living disconnected. And maybe that sentence becomes the doorway back to each other. So before we move forward, I want you to pause for just a moment. Take a breath. Wherever you are, whatever you're carrying, this next part is for you. Let's speak life over ourselves out loud if you can. Because what we say in this moment has the power to shift how we walk into the rest of our day. Let's begin with our affirmation. I am not defined by my past or limited by my mistakes. I am growing, learning, and becoming who I was created to be. I have values beyond titles, roles, and expectations. I choose honesty over fear and growth over comfort. I am allowed to change, heal, and evolve. I walk with purpose, clarity, and courage. I am becoming more aligned with my true self every day. And who I am is enough. So as we close today's episode, I want to thank you for taking this time for yourself. If something you heard inspired you, challenged you, or made you pause and reflect, please don't keep it to yourself. Share this episode with someone who may need it. Invite them into the conversation. See, this podcast grows when we grow together. I cannot do this without you. We grow together through shared stories, honest reflections, and real connections. Every listen, every share, every conversation helps create a community rooted in purpose, rooted in love, rooted in hope, rooted in faith, rooted in trust and truth. So until next time, keep reflecting, keep becoming, and remember, you matter. This is the Who Am I Podcast. And let's walk this journey together.
Who am I? Yeah, I'm more than the pain. Who am I? More than the pride. Who am I? Who am I? Walking in purpose, no mask, no disguise. This is my voice, my rise, my life. Welcome to Who Am I?